Hi everybody! Today I'll first introduce myself and after that I'll add some information about my ongoing project. My name is Riina Rammo and I'm a textile archaeologist. I'm currently working as a senior research fellow in the Department of Archaeology, University of Tartu. I got my education at the same university. The most important milestones in my career are, first, the defense of my PhD in 2015. In my doctoral dissertation, I analyzed textile fragments unearthed from medieval and early modern cesspits in Estonia's present-day territory, and analyzed them in terms of Hanseatic trade and social context. Another important period was my postdoctoral project at Aalto University Nanomicroscopy Center in Helsinki, in Finland. My main goal was to educate myself in the field of scientific analysis. During the project, I practiced fiber determination and various microscopy techniques, and deepened my knowledge of dye analysis. As you can already guess from my doctoral dissertation topic, I have mainly focused on medieval and post-medieval textile finds, roughly the period from the 13th century until the 17th century AD. This is also the period from where the main corpus of textile fragments in Estonian collections origin. In addition to the cesspit material, I have dealt with cloth seals and textile tools from the same period to a lesser extent. Cordage and sail remains of a 14th century caulk from Tallinn are worth to mention. In addition to this main line of my research, as I am currently one of the few textile archaeologists in Estonia, I have been involved in many exciting projects where textile expertise has been needed. These projects range from Egyptian mummy wrappings to the 18th century urban upper-class funeral dress and crane furnishing. These versatile projects have shown me how exciting the past is through textiles. Producing and using textiles is linked to many different aspects of human life. Therefore, the aim of the Euroweb projects to write history through textiles is well justified, and I am very glad to be part of it. At the moment, I have replaced the interest in technology with the study of clothing. I am therefore pleased to be part of Working Group 2 of the Euroweb project. I am currently running a 3-year project on clothing history, which is focused on the clothing and self-identity from the 11th to the 16th century in Estonian territory. The study is based primarily on archaeological finds, as there is very little written data or images from this period, especially on the rural population in Estonia. In my project, I attempt to combine all these different sources. However, it is impossible to write a detailed clothing history or compile a complete fashion book of this long period based on the fragmented evidence available. Instead, the focus is to observe combinations of certain features such as materials, colors, color symbolism, and accessories. In terms of interpretations, the stress is on the communicative aspects of clothing practices. How social identity, group affiliation, and geographical origin were expressed in clothing. How self-expression changed over the long period considered. The project requires an interdisciplinary approach. First, the thorough study of archaeological finds needs scientific methods. Secondly, the interpretation involves theoretical concepts and methods of various disciplines, for example, social theories, semiotics, etc. Finally, I'll briefly present one of the case studies I am currently working on. The finds of Kukruse Cemetery. The cemetery was discovered accidentally during the road reconstruction works in 2009. The salvage excavations were carried out in winter of 2009 and 2010. The field works conditions were extreme. The temperature was constantly minus 20 degrees Celsius and deep snow covered the earth. The cemetery has been dated to the end of the 12th century and the first half of the 13th century. This is an important transition period in Estonian history, as it involves the violent crusades and Christianization of the region. Both pagan and Christian features can be seen in the graves. Rich grave goods on the one hand, but Christian symbols on the other hand. Altogether 40 individuals in 35 graves were excavated, men, women, as well as children. As it was impossible to document all data correctly in the extreme conditions of fieldwork, many of the finds were removed from the soil as blocks. In one case, the entire burial as a soil block was transported to the laboratory at once. These blocks were studied in the laboratory conditions. This behavior saved a lot of important new information related to clothing. To date, all finds have been cleaned. This means that I can start my research as textile archaeologist. The systematic study of finds related to clothing started last year to collect as detailed data on deceased funeral dress as possible. This process can be compared to assembling a huge puzzle. First pieces of the puzzle are textile remains. Due to the unfavorable conditions, the textile fragments are rare, tiny, and very poorly preserved. Altogether, approximately 300 small scraps have been recorded so far. It is possible to observe different linen and wool textiles. It seems that blue was the dominant color of wool textiles, at least in the female clothing. The dye analysis have been not finalized yet. The second type of puzzle pieces are ornaments and accessories which have a function in clothing, especially pins, brooches, belts. These have been used as fasteners of clothing items. I sometimes have to justify this part of my research, because for others, clothing is often associated only with textiles. If you look at the attire as a whole, for example, the metal ornaments played important role in colors. Consequently, I examine the composition of alloys. The most crucial source is the decorations made of tiny spiral tubes. These tubes were wound of copper alloy wire. The location of these patterns in the grave allows sometimes to observe the edges of a clothing item. After putting all these pieces in place, a very preliminary reconstruction of the female funeral costume, how it might have looked like, has been recreated. Although time-consuming and complicated, it is based on the data created by scientific and contextual analysis. This is the easy part for me. Now only the complicated study begins. How to translate the funerary clothing into the dress code and fashion of living people. With current knowledge, such an appearance refers to an adult woman, maybe a married woman, we don't know it exactly. We can assume that this costume also had a function during a person's lifetime. It certainly reflects regional affiliation, because such finds are widespread in North Estonia. Specific details refer even to a particular community that used the Kukruse cemetery, maybe a village. But what else? What clothes living people wore? How to observe various aspects of identities? In which occasions such an appearance was appropriate? I believe I'll receive support and new knowledge in this working group for my future research. Thank you.